Morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good, thanks, Bede. And yourself?
Very good. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to continue on talking. And I just want to emphasize something before we go on. What we're talking about is that we want to get to the root of what the actual basis of our life in the world, the actual basis of what drives us as human beings to be the way we are. And what Swami Dayananda says is that psychologically what that is a tremendous sense of insecurity. Now, what I mean by that is that because we possess a human body and we exist in a particular form, that form is always subject to death or harm. And this is why there's always a tremendous and mainly unconscious, actually, sense of insecurity. Tremendous. It's so painful we don't even like to acknowledge it. Like, think about, see, in terms of social life, you know, if you went up to a whole group of people and said, like, I want to tell you something about myself, I'm very insecure. Immediately they would think that something was wrong with you. Yeah. Because the whole cultural heroism at the moment is following your passion, being an outstanding success, being completely positive.
Being a good look.
Sorry?
Being a good look.
Being an incredibly, not just a good look, being an incredibly outstanding good look, which is our subject matter of today. But the thing is that because the insecurity, even the experience of it is so unpleasant, the fear involved with it, this is why psychologically we're so compulsive. This is why we remain the same, because the way we are is our whole defense against this insecurity. The way we are psychologically. I'm not talking about in terms of function. We might function quite well, but we're not talking about how we function. You can be a competent accountant, and I'm sure you are, Kevin. You mean you can be a competent psychotherapist, you can be a competent whatever. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the psychological problem of the human being. And what Swami Dayananda says that our basis is this tremendous sense of insecurity. That's the first thing. And the next thing, which is incredibly important, an incredible sense of self-dissatisfaction. We don't like the way we are. We can't stand ourselves the way we are. And so we are self-dissatisfied. We're unhappy. This is his definition of unhappiness, actually. He doesn't because it's me not liking the way I am, and therefore I try to be something different from I am as a solution.
So we need to either be different, become something different, or obtain something to make us happy.
Yes, we have to. We have to be. Well, we have to. But again, even obtaining something in our culture, to have is to be. If I have certain possessions, then I can be somebody. So it all boils. We're not just going for the material things. We're going for the self-satisfaction, the experience of self-satisfaction by attaining those things. So our core problem is this fundamental insecurity and self-dissatisfaction centered on ourselves. We don't have this self-dissatisfaction and insecurity. We are this self-dissatisfaction and insecurity. This is Swami Dayananda never objectifies our psychology. He never, unlike in the West, he doesn't sort of say, oh, we have this, you know. This.
So this is this example of with the example of anger, like you're not just having an angry thought, you're being the anger. in this case, you're not just having a friction or a problem with the mind or something. You are being that dissatisfied person.
Quite. You are being a person who is insecure and self-dissatisfied, and out of that comes your way of living.
God help us.
No, it's actually given our lack of understanding, and given the way we see ourselves, we see the world and other people, we can't actually help but be like this. It's actually incredibly lawful, given our ignorance. We can't help but act this way. We can't help but be this way, actually. This is the point. We can't help be this way. And the whole point with as far as Swami Dayananda is concerned, is that the transformation that we need has to happen right here, as I am, right now. Right now, right here, as I am. If there's any change, the change has to be in me. Not with my mind, not with other people, and not with the world. So I just wanted to just give an orientation as to what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with here is the fundamental problem of the human being, which Swami Dayananda says is centered on ourselves. We are the place where the problem is. We, me. And
but it's a mistake of it's a mistaken notion, an erroneous notion.
Yes, it is, but the problem is that it's not seen as a notion.
No.
So you see, that's a very interesting point you bring up. I might have a notion that I'm experiencing a snake as opposed to a rope, but I'm not aware at all that it's a notion. As far as I'm concerned, I'm having the experience of a snake, and I'm having the experience of being incredibly afraid of it. So it's not, when we say it's only a notion, that's true. But we don't see that. Because the notion, that's invisible. We're not aware we're having a notion. All we're aware of is having the experience of life, in this case, life in the form of a snake, and it's scaring the daylights out of us.
Yeah.
So, you know how we've dealt with hurt, and we say that hurt is a dynamism. It's a dynamic push, if you like. Now that pushes us, pressurizes us to hurt others. We want to become. It's completely understandable when you're hurt that you want to become the hurter. Because the hurter beats you. The people who hurt you, they're the winners. So the whole, it's completely understandable. We also talked about guilt, this feeling of there's something wrong with me, I'm full of defects. This gives us a pressure to see people in a very derogatory way. We're actually looking for finding fault, because this relieves us of this tremendous burden of guilt. So when we're hurting and when we're criticizing others, we are actually, in terms of experience, we're free of guilt and hurt. This is why it's so compulsive. Now, we also, excuse me, we also have another problem that I want to deal with. I want to deal with today the particular form of the self-dissatisfaction, which we call being small, a sense of smallness, a sense of insufficiency, a sense of insignificance, a sense of unimportance.
I think that insignificance is a good one, and explains a lot of behavior, in my view.
It certainly does, because what happens is that You see, because, you see, again, we're not necessarily conscious of our feeling of insignificance or not being good enough. But we're definitely conscious of the delicious feeling of being outstanding and bigger and better than other people. We definitely can understand that. Now, one of the things here is that if I was to say to you, Kevin, one of my problems is I like to brag. I like to high note myself. Of course, I want to do this subtly. I don't want to do it in a loud way because it would be too obvious. Then the people with the guilt would go, look at him, he's a bragger. But
you do it with a smile.
Sorry?
You do it with a smile, a gentle voice.
Well, yes, but it's not so much that, is that I have to, you see, the thing is the desire to be more important, to be outstanding, to be bigger and better than other people is a tremendous drive. And it manifests itself in very many ways because, you see, again, it's this being a good look. Like, this is this whole process of how do I prove myself? You see, I remember when I started doing this sort of stuff, and I looked in the mirror and I says, okay, you like to prove yourself. You like to brag subtly. You like to present yourself in good ways, and you've got various ways of doing it. Now, at the time, I felt very embarrassed about this fact. I don't feel embarrassment about it now. I just consider my teacher, Atmaprakashananda, says you don't have to get shy about all this. You know, this is the way this is what we're like. And it's extremely important in the study of Vedanta just to say, okay, I like to high note myself. I like to be important. I like to prove myself and all of this sort of stuff. I like to be a good look, and it's a good feeling. And the reason it's a good feeling, why do you think it is such a delicious feeling to be outstanding? To be outstanding spiritually, to be outstanding materially, to be outstanding in terms of competence. What do you think? Why is it that we want to be the top of the class? Why do we want to be the winner?
Because when you feel good about yourself and feel you have a good look, and you feel others have that same good look of you, you're not aware of the insecurity and self-dissatisfaction you normally take yourself to be.
Quite. So what it does is it acts as a defense. Now, so again, if we are to resolve this problem, you're not going to resolve it by cutting off the branches.
You're not going to resolve it by stopping the bragging. It may be a modest attempt.
Oh, no. We're going to go into that. It's very important. It's very important. You don't try and stop the emotional feeling of that I want to look good and bigger and better than other people. But you definitely, it's extremely useful to not dramatize it in the form of bragging, because the problem is, like we said about guilt and hurt, every time you engage in an action that is designed to make you look good and to be outstanding, you actually revitalize that sense of insecurity, that sense of smallness.
You hold in place that type of structure behind it.
Yeah. We hold in place the insecurity and self-dissatisfaction through dramatization. That's why Swami Dayananda is very clear on the fact of self-mastery. So we completely accept the fact that psychologically I would like to be important and outstanding, and I have the desire to brag and all of that. We go, okay, that's like Atmaprakashananda says, just don't be shy about it. This is just the way we are. But in terms of dramatizing it, it's not that it's a bad thing, but given that we are wanting to resolve the fundamental self-dissatisfaction centered on ourselves, it's not helpful when we dramatize it. But you see, and now, again, this sense of smallness or inferiority, even though we don't necessarily often experience it, because we're so busy proving ourselves, moving towards all these different forms of self-glory that we find so attractive.
We don't see that as a driving force. Normally,
No.
We may be aware of, when we embellish a story or brag or however you want to articulate it, but we're not aware of the actual driving force behind that, which is feeling small and insignificant.
It's too painful. But out of this drive comes a whole phenomena which I want to go on about so that we can more clearly see its operation in daily life. The first thing is that because I want to be outstanding, you see, you can't have a village idiot without a village, can you? You can't have a winner without losers.
Yes.
And it's not possible to have a winner without a loser. So you have to, first of all, so here you are, we're all engaged in this tremendous struggle to achieve significance and importance, particularly outstanding importance. Being more important than other people. The idea of being ordinary is just an anathema. It's just, please leave it alone. So this striving to be important and outstanding, what happens is I noticed then, Kevin, that you're getting the attention that I would like. So what happens is I have this experience of this feeling which we call jealousy. And I think, I'd certainly like to be in his shoes. Do you know what I mean? So jealousy. Do you know what I mean? And the reason that I feel jealous is because I would like to be getting or the attention or have the outstandingness that you seem to be having. But what happens is that, so naturally, because the name of the game is to win, to be outstanding, to be important, I'm going to often experience jealousy. I would like to be in your shoes. But you see, because this is a relentless game, this jealousy converts and turns into something a little bit more intense. I now become envious. Now, instead of being in your shoes, I want to have what you've got. Now, you see, in the spiritual world, there are people who claim to be enlightened. In our tradition, we never ever say that we're enlightened. So I never ever heard Swami Dayananda says, I'm an enlightened person. Because what happens is that human beings, because we feel deficient, when we meet someone who we feel has something that we haven't got, which is envy, we want it. We have this tremendous admiration for them, don't we? And what the psychodynamic people have clearly shown is that this admiration is actually a disguised form of envy. You see, and again, because we want it.
It can be. There are aspects where if you recognise that someone's abilities are due to their past efforts or grace or whatever, that can sort of help diminish any envy or jealousy because you recognise that. But often that's not we're not that.
That's being objective, though, Kevin.
Yes, that's being objective.
Yeah, we're not talking about objectivity here. We're talking about our obsession with how do we stack up against others, and how are they in terms of this mad race to be outstanding and magnificent. This mad race towards.
I think this is what we're describing here is the more common view.
Human life is subjectivity in operation. That's what human life is. And one of the forms it takes is envy.
Mm.
The intense feeling of, I want to have what that person has got. Now, but then it even gets worse, Kevin. You see, I started with jealousy. Now I've intensified the game into more. I'm ruminating over how I would like to have what you've got. I like your BMW and I want it.
Mm.
Now it gets to the point where now, because you're beating me, what I want is I come into rivalry with you. I want to beat you now. I don't want to have what you've got. I want to beat you.
Mm.
I want to beat you somehow. And this is quite a common thing, you know, in human relationships. This envy and jealousy and rivalry are the underlying dynamics that determine so much of what happens between people, between husbands and wives, between people, co-workers, and all of this stuff.
Mm.
But again, underneath is this tremendous sense of, you know, I am nothing. I'm small. I'm not important. I want to be important. I want to stand out. It's like a little kid, you know, who wants to be the Lone Ranger because he knows the Lone Ranger's the hero.
Mm.
This is why a lot of these success motivation people, you are magnificent. You're this, you know, you can change the world and all that stuff. You know, it's just. It's very appealing. They appeal to this. They don't appeal to the spiritual. They don't appeal to the spirit of heroism. They're actually presenting a solution to a relentless, constant problem of I am insignificant and small. And so now I'm full of rivalry. I want to beat you, Kevin, because you're too outstanding for me. In my own eyes. Now we come to the common one. You see, when is that we now want to move from rivalry and we really want to up the game, and then we move into malice. Now I want to destroy you. Now I want to have the vindictive triumph of beating you. And have you ever seen people in the corporate world, for example? Envy, rivalry, jealousy, and malice are all over the place. They're disguised. They're disguised in the sense of because you can't show. You see, you can't show your hand. You know how they say, you know, you can't show your hand. It's like poker.
Yeah.
You can't say to someone, I'm envious and jealousy of you. I want to beat you somehow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy you. And so when you see people talking behind other people's backs, this malicious seeking to deprive people of the friendship of others, seeking to lower their stature in the eyes of others. It's like a pulley system, isn't it? Pull people down and then that pulls you up. But but the problem is that when you're pulling people down, you have to engage in action to do that. Have you seen that type of thing happen in life?
I think it's, unfortunately, I think it's prevalent in human interactions.
That word again, ubiquitous. The word ubiquitous means it's all over the place, everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
Because of this fundamental problem of sense of insecurity and sense of self-dissatisfaction.
Yeah, I'm dissatisfied. I feel that I am an insignificant, small, pathetic human being. I'm not outstanding. I'm not on the stage. You see, this compulsion to be outstanding is a huge one. In Vedanta, we call it the desire to become. See, even a child, if you notice that even children, some children at school, even though they're going to get punished, the idea of being nothing is so intolerable, they will be naughty and they will actually get punished. They will actually do provocative things. The teacher growls at them or straps them or whatever. They don't strap them these days, but you know what I mean? Like they will be punished and get into trouble. But at least they exist. I am outstanding. You see, it's interesting, the word exist. It means X out to stand out. I want to exist. The desire to exist.
Well, I think that it's a lot more than just being naughty in front of the teacher in a classroom. It's every time. It's a lot of interactions between them where they're seeking attention and doing it in sort of destructive, stirring ways.
Yes, but however, I want to point out it's not just simply attention. It is to be outstanding.
Yeah.
It is to exist in the eyes of other people. Here I am existing. And this pressure to exist because of the fear of being nothing, this is a tremendous dynamism in human life. Tremendous dynamism. And it's very important to, like, you know how I've said, it's very important to understand the disease that we suffer from, because it's this very specific disease that Dayananda's teaching very elegantly addresses.
Well, Dayananda says that unless you inquire into yourself, your emotionally will still be the age of a 6-year-old.
Yes, he says unless you grow up, you know, unless there's an emotional growth where we grow out of our emotional immaturity, there is no hope for us. And there's no possibility of understanding Vedanta. Because, you see, I can say, let's say, for example, here I am, I notice that I'm full of envy. Well, that's a fact that I need to be alive to. You know, now I can resist it by going, no, I'm the self, I'm consciousness, I'm not envy, I'm really not. But what I'm doing there is I'm having an idea about myself. There's a big difference between having a noble spiritual idea about myself and appreciating myself as consciousness. There's a huge difference between the two.
There's some very large groups on Facebook that premise this thing about I'm the self and that solves everything, and people are very happy about thinking that.
Right. So what happens is that the thing is that we do not resolve the psychological problems by telling ourselves that we're the self. We never. It's not possible. It is not possible. The whole purpose of karma yoga, or the yoga of objectivity, the whole possible of understanding Ishwara is the psychological release of this fundamental insecurity and self-dissatisfaction. Once we are relatively released from that, not absolutely, we then have a mind in which we can inquire into, and through listening to a teacher, begin to come to a recognition of ourselves that's entirely different. But to try and resolve our psychological issues. Do you know what I mean? Just to resolve our psychological issues through I am consciousness alone. I'm not my thoughts and my feelings. What that does is that it splits us up. Here I am, I'm like this, I'm dissatisfied with this, and then I try to use this to get rid of it. And so what happens is you get the same mechanism coming into play.
It's trying to fix it up with positive thinking, really. It's the same type of thing, isn't it?
Well, it's trying to use it's trying to operate on ourselves to make us into a better self through thinking in the right way. If you were to describe it.
Yes.
But that's not going to resolve it, because the fact of the matter is that here I am, right here, right now, I'm full of jealousy. Here I am, right now, I'm full of envy. Now, if I have this strange notion, if I look at my emotional reactions in the light of the social context, in the light of the social context, then of course I'm going to go, oh, I shouldn't be envious. I shouldn't be jealous, because I'm very aware that in social life I can't manifest any of this. And I'm not suggesting that you should. However, but this fear of what we're really like, to just simply acknowledge what we're really like, is a profound fear. But the starting point of Vedanta is to be alive to facts. Swami Dayananda says, you're not living unless you're alive to facts.
I think it's a very important datum.
It is. Now, it's also related to his idea of what he means by the universe. They have a Sanskrit term called Jagat, and he's very, very clear. The Jagat isn't the world out there. The Jagat includes all the functioning of the mind-sense-body complex. So he says that we have to be alive to facts. That means we're alive to the fact that, yes, I'm alive to the fact that, yes, Kevin has got this beautiful, nice BMW. I'm also alive to the fact, I'd love to have that. You know what I mean? And then, Bede loves to feel good about himself, but that way, I have to be alive to what is. I don't create what is. That's the functioning of the order. But it's very important to be able to be alive to facts as they are. It's extremely important to do that, because otherwise we're not living. Now, the thing is the resolution of that, which we're going to go into later, that of being envious or being jealous or being rivalry or being malicious. It's, of course, extremely important. But it has to be approached in the right way. Otherwise, there will not be a resolution of it. We can't think our way out of this. We can't do our way out of
it. Any approach of like this positive thinking or what you gave will just be a modification of the same problem, really.
Yeah, it's what it is that what's extremely important to understand is that we're not trying to be a nice person or a good person or try to being a religious person. We're not what Swami Dayananda says, we're reality people. We want to be truthful. We want to fundamentally be ourselves. And so
just coming back to that, but when you are abiding in the appreciation of Ishwara, you will.
I don't want to go into that now, though, Kevin.
Okay.
I want to pose the problem here.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is that in terms of our emotional reactions, which are facts to be alive to, there's a tremendous resistance to acknowledging them. Because we have notions about ourselves. We have a notion of ourselves. A beautiful notion of ourselves, by the way. We have an idealized notion of ourselves. You mean like what I'd like to be? Like, I'm never jealous. I never need social approval. Anyone who tells you they don't need social approval are liars. Okay, so the thing is that, well, they're not liars. They're just telling a lie. You see, the thing is that it's extremely important to be alive to facts. Here I've got, though, this notion of myself as this, wonderful, honest, nice, virtuous person. Understandable. Because that notion of myself protects me, because I think that if I am jealous or if I'm envious, I'm having these reactions, you see. I'm not, for me, that means we judge ourselves on the basis of our emotional reactions. This is a very bad mistake. You see, when you don't judge yourself on the basis of your psychological reactions, you can say, right now, I'm experiencing jealousy. It's not going to be a problem. It's just simply a fact. But if I've caught up in this idea of myself, it's going to be very threatening. I won't want to even acknowledge the fact that I get jealous, that I sometimes I feel rivalry. I want to beat people. Sometimes I feel malicious. Now, these are only feelings. They mean nothing. They're just simply the functioning of the order. However, while I have this lovely, beautiful notion of myself, it's going to scare the hell out of me. So therefore, I'm going to pretend that this isn't the case. Oh, no, I don't want to be outstanding. I'm a very humble person.
I don't get jealous.
I don't get jealous.
I don't have malice.
Oh, no, oh, absolutely. I knew that about you, Kevin. Yes, of course. I'm the same. It's these people.
I'm never envious.
Yes, but these people around us, Kevin, yes, they are.
Oh, stand for that.
Yeah. Look at that guy. Yeah, he's such a Scot. Oh my God, look at him. What is that? Of course, that's the projection of guilt, isn't it? Because so it's a very important thing to understand that that on one hand, you see, our emotional reactions are what they are. They're just simply what they are. Now, because what Swami Dayananda says that this whole jugget is the operation of this order. It's the functioning, it's the presence of reality in the form of this functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. This is what we're looking at all the time. So I see that you have a lovely car, and I look at mine and I've only got a Toyota Corolla, and I go, Now, I'm aware of the fact that you have a lovely car. I'm also aware of the fact that I might be jealous. I'd like to be in a position where I have that car, for example. Right? Now, these are just simply facts to be aware of, because these facts are like the weather. It's very good to see. You see, it's very good to see every emotional reaction that you have. It's like the coming and going of the weather. Now, when the rain starts, if it becomes a dark day, do you go, oh my God, I'm feeling bad because it's raining? There's no self-judgment associated with that appearance, is there?
No.
But you see, the thoughts and feelings that happen in us, they're also appearances. And we can accept them the same way. Well, I'm going to go into the how we do this, the how of this later, but we can accept these reactions and feelings in exactly the same way. So we don't have anxiousness about the anxiousness, or we're not angry about the anger, or we're not sad about the sadness. Do you see what I mean? So, because this is not our doing. What comes and goes in terms of appearances is not our doing. We are not doing it. It is the operation of Ishwara. It is the operation of reality in the form of this well-ordered, intelligent universe.
But those type of emotions can be are more prevalent when you have this sense of insecurity and self-dissatisfaction.
I know, but you see, no. This can be missing the point. What I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with those emotions as emotions. That's the point. It's not even, it's completely not to be fixed. All of our emotional reactions we have, they are not the problem. Becoming them is the problem. Because when we become them, we act them out. And then we see what Swami Dayananda says, there's right and wrong in terms of action. But what I'm trying to get through here is this. It's a good point, and I'm glad you... We don't even want to judge them in that way. They're just simply an appearance. You see, the reaction of jealousy does not mean that I am insecure. Being the jealousy, yes. And then the strivings away from that, yes. But the order is not insecure.
No.
There is nothing wrong with the order.
So this is like, we're not in control of the thoughts that come in our mind, but how we respond to them, or whether we act them out, we can have choice over that.
Yes.
Okay.
But what you see, the only moral issue, the only thing in terms of right and wrong is what we do.
Mm.
Because when these reactions come, they're a pressure to do things.
Mm.
But the paradoxical thing is this, is that we have to see our mind in the right light. And strictly speaking, it's not our mind. It is whatever you're experiencing at any one moment. This is the vision of Swami Dayananda. At any one moment, what you're experiencing, the coming and going of the appearances that are here, are the presence of reality in the form of a functioning order that's perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. It is completely out of our hands. We are not doing it. We are not responsible for it. We don't have to be guilty about it. It says nothing about us. But we think it does. If we have a malicious thought, we go, oh, I shouldn't be like that. I'm supposed to be a nice, sweet person. The basis of that type of thinking is that this appearance that I'm experiencing, which is the jealousy, means that there's something wrong with me. That's the problem. And Swami Dayananda, the whole point of his understanding of God or Ishwara is it creates a distance between ourselves and those reactions. He talks about a lot about that. So there's not even the slightest suggestion, because he doesn't consider the coming and going of appearances the problem. He considers the problem is centered on me. It really is not the mind. This is an extraordinary thing, but it's very important because when we literally see that these reactions, all of them, are the presence of Ishvara in the form of these reactions, we are released from this self-condemnation concerning them. That's why he says that the understanding of Ishvara is the basis of a self-acceptance. Does that make sense? So we're not even, it means nothing. You see, if I have an ideal in mind, let's imagine I have an ideal in mind. Okay, I don't want to feel angry, and I don't want to feel envious, and I don't want to feel insignificant, and I don't want to feel unimportant, and I don't want to have any negative thoughts. Well, whoop-de-dee-doody-dum, I'm going to be in for trouble. Because I'm trying to control things that are outside my control. But if we can come into relation to what is, the whole purpose of the yoga of objectivity is to come into a relation to what is, in which there is absolutely no resistance. But what he does is that Swami Dayananda unfolds this way of understanding what we normally call our mind. And because what happens is, have you ever heard of the term introversion?
Yeah.
What happens is that we turn in on ourselves and, oh God, why am I feeling this way? Oh my goodness, I'm feeling, oh yeah. And if I feel this way, it means that I'm this. I'm a loser. You know, I was talking to someone the other day and I said, so what if you're negative? So what if you have negative thoughts? So what? So-called negative thoughts, unpleasant thoughts. What is that a problem? It's not a problem.
Well, it's only a problem when you become them.
But well, it's actually, but it's also a problem when you actually don't see them in the right light.
Absolutely.
You see, if you don't see them in the right light, you will become them.
Yes.
Do you mean like the thing is that if you our reactions happen, and what happens is the great thing about the yoga of objectivity, we give our reactions complete and utter free rein. We accommodate them. We make room for the lot of them. You know, this is this open acceptance of all of them. He talks about this attitude of accommodation, an accommodating attitude. We just simply, we embrace fully the presence of what is in whatever form that it's taking.
Because really what you're saying there, if we're not accommodating, if we're, what I think is quite common, we're resisting, rejecting our thoughts and feelings and other people and whatever, we're keeping in place this mechanism of striving and becoming and having, and which is primarily based on insecurity and self-dissatisfaction. Is that what we're...
Yes. What happens is that we have, with every psychological pain, there is always a resistor resisting the resisted. The structure of pain is that. The structure of psychological pain, that structure is always there. Can you think of a time when you've been miserable? There's always been, I'm miserable and I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm doing that and I can't stand it. This fundamental dualism of where we split our life is the resistor versus the resisted.
What's interesting here, what you're talking about, I can see that when you are accepting or you're not resisting, you're being objective, and you can appreciate yourself as conscious, and you're not fighting internally these thoughts of being envious or whatever. You're just allowed to pass. Yeah,
it's not your job. The envy's in God's hands.
It's no need to, and the fighting and resisting it will just keep that whole machinery in place of internalizing it, which is there's no solution, and then that, you know, positive thinking won't help you. It's only through acceptance.
Yes, and acceptance isn't something you can do. Now, we're going to be going into this later. You can't say, I will now be accepting. Acceptance is an attitude that is born out of the understanding of what Ishwara is, what God is. This is extremely important. So the thing that, you see, Swami Dayananda's most extraordinary psychological fact, which I found absolutely extraordinary. When I first read it, I thought, oh my goodness, it can't be this simple. It can't be. What he said was that the basis of reaction is the non-acceptance of a fact. And when he's talking about reaction, he's talking about you being the reaction. So the basis of reaction is not having a thought coming into your mind and out of it. It's you becoming the feeling, and then you dramatize it. So the basis of reaction is non-acceptance of a fact. So this means that if there is acceptance of the fact, there is no reaction on our part. We don't react.
No.
We don't become disturbed.
And we're available to deal with the situation.
Of course. This is the whole point of the yoga of objectivity. You cannot practice the yoga of objectivity without this understanding of what he means by God. And it's, but I don't want to, we're going to go more into this later, but.
Can I talk about an example of fear? Like, if I have a fear, I can resist it, reject it. Oh, I don't want to be fearful, or I'll hide because I'm feeling a bit fearful. And there's no solution in that of dealing with fear. But if I just accept fear and face the situation,
well, you're not going to know. But no. Again, I want to stress: people try to accept. And then all the new age stuff. Yes, have acceptance, unconditional love and all that stuff, right? The thing is, it's not that easy. We have to, what happens is, get this, the only thing that brings you into an attitude of what he calls graceful acceptance, what Swami Dayananda calls graceful acceptance, or what we refer to by being relaxed in the lap of Ishwara, it is something that is born out of the understanding that what I am facing right now is the presence of God in the form of this functioning order. If I don't get this, I will psychologically try to get acceptance, do acceptance. The important point is arriving at being accepting. And this being accepting cannot be done. You can't decide to do it because it's born out of an understanding of what Ishvara is. And it's very important to understand this, because it's very easy to say, yes, you should be accepting. Well, how? There's an epistemological rule. When you know what, you know how. When you know what you are facing is the presence of God in the form of this functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement that it is, you are actually appreciating what is in front of you as that. You will find yourself being accepting. It's not that you're having an accepting attitude, and it's not that you're doing an accepting attitude. That can be quite helpful in practical life, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that is born out of the vision of what Swami Dayananda means by God. And I tell you, unless we come to this understanding of what he means by God, there is no psychological release. I'll say that quite clearly. There is no psychological release that's possible. That's why you get yourself in front of a traditional teacher who's competent, and you come to understand what we mean by God. We're going to be going into that, but as well. But I just want to point out that this attitude of being accepting is not born out of my action at all. It's not born out of my spiritual insight. It's not born out of anything that I do. It is born out of the understanding of what Swami Dayananda means by Ishvara. Okay?
That's important to understand.
Sorry?
I understand. I recognize that's important to understand. I appreciate what you...
Yes. So it's very important to understand the distinction between a psychological understanding where we do it. We have an accepting attitude, which can be sort of helpful. But that is not going to bring about the release of this fundamental self-dissatisfaction and insecurity. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, Kevin. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bede.